Hello, this is Janet Michael. In addition to hosting The Valley Today each weekday at noon on the River 95.3, I also produce podcasts, and I'm excited to introduce you to a new podcast series in partnership with Lord Fairfax Community College. Having provided higher education and career training for the past half-century, LFCC is tightly interwoven into the fabric of the Northern Shenandoah Valley and Piedmont regions. Join me every week for conversations with current and former students to hear their funny and inspiring stories as we learn about their journey to higher education, the role that LFCC has played, where they are now, and where they plan to go. We'll also talk to current and former professors about their experiences and best memories of LFCC over the past 50 years. Get every single episode as they're released on our website at theriver953.com under the podcast tab, or you can subscribe for free in Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, on Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search for LFCC Stories. Hello and welcome to The Valley Today. I am your host, Janet Michael. Happy Monday as you are listening to the show today. We, however, have pre-recorded our conversation on the Zoom screen. We are chatting with one of my dear friends and local attorney, Suzan, I won't make you spell my last name, Herskowitz. She is joining me on the Zoom screen today for what I think is a really, really important conversation. Suzan, you and I have had this conversation both personally and on the radio show before, but I feel like in the age of COVID, it's a conversation that needs to be had at least one more time, if not a dozen more times. So thanks for meeting up with me on the Zoom screen today. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you asking.
So before we get into the weeds too much, local attorney, I know that I have learned over the years that attorneys in general are only allowed to specialize in certain fields. So I'm not going to say that you specialize, but you focus a lot on wills, trusts, estates, medical directives. Tell me a little bit about the type of services that you provide to your clients.
The overall topic would be estate planning. Some people like to say, do you handle senior people? The answer is yes. And we also, anybody over the age of 18, I don't just focus on the elderly. So yes, we do elder law, but mostly estate planning, meaning wills, trusts, powers of attorney, medical directives, transfer on death deeds, and things of that nature.
And we've talked, I know, about medical directives on the air before, because I think they're confusing to some people because not everybody understands what they are. And people think they have a different title. Like the people will say, oh, no, I need a living will. They don't understand what all of the terms are and what those things actually are. Can you explain all of that?
In 5 minutes or less, probably going to be hard, but I'll do my best. A will is a document that you sign that determines who gets your property, your beneficiaries, after you die. A living will is a term that we have saddled ourselves with for probably about 40 years. That is not a will. It is part of a medical directive or medical power of attorney in which you are telling your medical providers that if you have a terminal condition that you do or do not want life-sustaining procedures like trach tubes and the like.
It gives someone else, ideally a family member or a close friend, the power to say this is what they wanted if they're in a position to not say that for themselves.
Correct. Exactly.
And I know that from a will perspective, what happens if you die and don't have a will?
The state has one for you, God bless them. So it may not matter, but in some instances it definitely does. Second marriages, children from prior relationships, can really throw a monkey wrench into how you think you want your property to be distributed if you don't have it written down, because what the state has determined to be what you should want may not be what you want. So you may think your spouse gets everything, but you've got children from a prior marriage and your spouse isn't going to get everything.
And a lot of times it gets sticky. I mean, one of the things that we've talked about in the past is how to eliminate the stress and the arguing and potential fighting that could come from not writing it down and just assuming, oh, if something happens to my husband, for example, and Tim, we've all been friends for years, he's a hunter and he has hunting rifles that have been passed down to him from his dad and his grandfather and things like that. He assumes that if something happens to him that I'm going to do a certain thing with them. But if he hasn't put that in writing, I'm not bound by what he assumes if something should happen to him.
Well, and you guys have children from prior marriages. So in fact, without a will, what happens to all of his things may or may not occur the way he wants. He may want everything to go to Dylan, but it's not. He may want everything to go to you, but it's not.
And I think there's a big misconception out there too about what you actually have. You and I had this conversation probably 15 years ago when I said, well, I don't need a will because I don't have anything. And then you started rattling off all of these things. Well, is your car paid for? Or, what about Josh? At the time he was still underage, who would you want to take care of Josh? Sometimes we don't think about what we actually do have that should be included in something when you're preparing a will.
Guardianship for children may be one of the most ignored things that can be put inside of a will, where you state who you want to take care of your children upon your death, if their parent is not available, and in some instances, if you don't want it to even be the parent, which does happen.
That was my case.
But this is you don't, how do I put this? You set up your family to be fighting in court because you haven't made your wishes concrete.
And I know we have talked about how people tend to wait to the last minute to do a lot of these things, that we all think from either a will or a medical directive perspective, I've got plenty of time. I'm still young. I'm still healthy. This isn't a pressing thing. Oh, this is too depressing. I don't want to think about it right now. And then something happens. Maybe a close family friend is in a car accident and we're watching their family go through something and we realize, wow, maybe I shouldn't wait to the last minute. Or there's a pandemic. This is not something you should wait to the last minute to start thinking about and putting down on paper.
No, not at all. It's the worst time to have to do it. One, because you're panicked. You may not be thinking clearly. You're feeling a great deal of stress. Nothing is being done calmly. Having a strategy is important, but what kind of strategy do you have when you're running back and forth to a hospital and trying to figure out how to pay the bills in the meanwhile and so forth? The other problem is, I guess I could tell the story, which I actually posted about. I got a call from a colleague who is not a lawyer, but in the financial field, who said, I have a client that's in the hospital and they're perfectly okay to do the document, but they need a new medical directive. And I said, first things first, we can't get into the hospital to get it taken care of. And the answer that came back was, yeah, I've been told that by other lawyers also. So how do we get older people their documents when there's an emergency? And my answer was, don't wait. Don't wait till there's an emergency. I get calls about emergencies all the time. Mom's in the hospital. She had a stroke. My first question is mom aware of her surroundings? Oh no, she's totally out of it. We can't do that anymore. She can't sign it. Because it's not the agent that signs the document, it's the person that needs the agent. And if they're no longer capable of making that kind of a decision because they're incompetent or unconscious, we can't do that. And of course, right now we cannot get into the hospital. So we can send a document, but we can't get the witnesses and or notary as which document requires into the hospital or into the nursing home. So we're in a pandemic. Who thought this would happen? We used to march in hospitals and nursing homes all the time, I like trailing 3 people behind me to act as witnesses and notary. We can't do that anymore.
Well, and it's
And
funny,
I
we
don't
were
know
talking
when,
before we started recording, and you and I have joked about how your line of work has always been one of those I need it right now moments. And I was asking you, how has that been, amplified by this pandemic? And you had no words.
I know, and I don't generally have no words for anything at all because I always have plenty. But no, it's been hard. It's been hard. We want to help everyone. I think all of me, my office, my other colleagues. I've had the phone calls where I've said we can't get you in for 4 to 6 weeks, and maybe you should call this attorney. And they said, but they told us to call you. So we're all feeling a crunch, and we're trying to work under the guise of all the pandemic strictures as well, with masks and
doing the social distancing and all of that sort of stuff.
And disinfecting and so forth. It's hard. It's been hard. We can't have people coming in on each other. We have to space everybody so that they don't run into each other going in and out of the door. It's been really hard. I think it's been hard for us too, because we're living through it also.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, can we talk a little bit about the process? Because I think that's the other reason why some people put things off, is they think that it's a whole lot more of a complicated process than what it actually is. So people understand, here's what you need to know, here are the decisions that you need to have made in advance, and what your role in all of that is. Can we talk about that in the next segment?
Sure, absolutely.
We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with local attorney Suzan Herskowitz. We are talking about the importance of having your will, your estate plan, your medical directives all in order, not just because we're in a pandemic, but because it is the smart thing to do and a really great gift that you can give to any family members that you might leave behind. We're going to chat more with her about that when we come back in just a couple of minutes.
Got a financial decision to make or a goal to reach, but you don't know where to start? You've come to the right place. Introducing Quick Money Chats with the Northern Shenandoah Valley Financial Education Program. Visit tinyurl.com/quickmoneychat to schedule a virtual chat with a staff member or trained volunteer. We won't tell you what to do, but we will give you the tools you need to choose wisely. And because Virginia Cooperative Extension is part of Virginia Tech and Virginia State, your land-grant universities, you can be sure that our information is credible and trustworthy. And you'll know that we aren't trying to sell you something. Maybe you want to improve your credit score, or reduce your banking overdraft fees, or even figure out if you can afford to buy that car. Sorting through tons of information on the internet can be overwhelming, and sometimes it can be hard to know who to trust. Schedule a Quick Money Chat and get the information you need to take action. Go to tinyurl.com/quickmoneychat and get financial education personalized for you.
Welcome back to the Valley today. I am your host, Janet Michael. Happy Monday as you are listening to the show today. We, however, have pre-recorded our conversation on the Zoom screen. We are chatting with my dear friend and local attorney, Suzan Herskowitz. Suzan is an attorney in Winchester. She is located just off of Valley Avenue, behind the old Montgomery Ward. So we'll see how many people remember that Montgomery Ward used to be in that shopping center there on Valley Avenue. Suzan, we've been talking about the importance of having a will, having medical directives, and having them all done well in advance of when you would actually need to have to use them or to put them in place. What is involved with doing something like that? I mean, do I need to spend days and hours compiling a list of every photograph and every item that I own? I mean, what would I have to do to start preparing to put my will together?
Well, some people will do that. Some people will take pictures. of things. At the very least, have an idea of what you have. You know, if you don't have to take a record of every piece of furniture in the house unless you intend that people are going to take every piece of furniture, that you want to give this chair to one grandchild and this chair to another grandchild. A lot of it has to do with whether or not they have sentimental value, or if they have value as an antique. That makes a difference. A lot of things we have aren't really worth very much, you know, that it's a chair.
Yeah.
You know. So, you know, I bought it at Grand's Furniture, I bought it at Ashley, I bought it at Rooms to Go, I bought it at Walmart. It doesn't have any real value. Nobody really cares about it. You could say I have a dining room set.
Well, and collections too, I would imagine, are like that.
Yeah.
For example, my mother was a diehard Dale Earnhardt fan. She was a NASCAR fan. She has an entire room, or used to have an entire room, of Dale Earnhardt collectibles that she
Right.
used to be so proud of and said, you know, when I go, I'm going to leave these to so-and-so. And I know that so-and-so did not want them and could not have cared any less about receiving them.
My mom has a piece of furniture that she really loves, and I know she loves it. She got it from my grandfather's sister, and she said, I'm leaving it to you. And I basically said, don't, because I don't want it, you know.
So the
But
other piece of that isn't just compiling the list, it is having the conversations and making sure that other people know what they may or may not be getting, finding out whether or not they even want it in the first place, and then getting it down in writing.
right. And the other thing is to have an idea of where your bank accounts are held. You know, I get people that come in and they say, well, I've got a checking account. Or I have to ask, and they say, well, I have a bank account. Well, is it a checking account or a savings account? Is it a money market or a CD? You know, and where do you have it? Do you know how much it's worth? Some people, that value will make a difference. Do you have a beneficiary on it? Is it in just your name? Do you hold it with the spouse? Do you have your child on there as a joint owner of the account? Are they a joint owner, or are they just a joint signatory?
Because there's a difference.
Because there's a difference. How do you own your house? Do you own it jointly with somebody else? Do you have a copy of the deed? Can you provide that copy?
And does all of that paperwork, like a copy of the deed, is all of that included in the will? Do I have to bring all of that with me to your office to finalize the papers?
Not necessarily, but I would write things down for certain. You know, come in with a list. Some people type it. They give me a computerized copy. But definitely, the more information you have available, the more robust the conversation can be, without me having to, or any other attorney having to, like, go through this entire conversation where we hear a lot of, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Well, you're already in my office. You've made this plan. You know, what do you want to do with your property? And property, by the way, does not always refer to real estate. Most people think it does. It means everything you own.
So that antique dresser, your vehicle, a boat, any of those kinds of things.
And your bank accounts, your stock brokerage accounts, all of it is your property. So you have to have an idea of what you own. Now, that's good for me, but it's really good for the family members. It's great for the person you're going to ask to handle your affairs when you die. it's great for the person you may be asking to handle your affairs through a power of attorney if you become disabled and you can't handle your your own affairs, your financial affairs. Because otherwise, it's like them rifling through a shoebox. You know, if they don't know where you keep your information, if they don't know what you own, how is that helpful? You know, when I help people with estates that they don't even know where things are, there's boxes and boxes and boxes of paperwork that has not been sorted in decades. And people do keep things for decades. We found something in my dad's files that went back to when my brother was 4 years old. And at the time he was 52.
Or
So
worse, you have a family member who never thought any of that stuff was important and threw everything away. So you have nothing and no place to start.
you have that as well. So you have both ends of the spectrum. You have people like my dad who had 15-year-old electric bills saved, and people that don't keep anything, or they keep it, but they keep it on digitally, but you don't have the password. So you can't make it difficult for the people that you love either. It's stressful for them. It's stressful because now you're deceased or you're ill. If it's a will, deceased, and if it's power of attorney, because maybe you're ill and you can't handle things, and they're tearing their hair out. They don't know what to do.
And I think that's another one of the benefits to coming to an attorney like you and saying, we want to put this stuff together, because I may not even think, my laptop is my world. Everything that I own and all of my information is in this laptop. But you're right. I've got certain programs password protected. I've got, the laptop itself is password protected. It may not have even occurred to me that that was a piece of information that would be helpful to somebody if I'm not available to say, oh, this is how you get into my laptop.
Yeah, exactly. And people don't think about that, but for example, you have a safe deposit box. Where's the key? You have a safe at home. Where do you keep the password? Do they have to hire a locksmith and blow the door off, break the lock?
So can are medical directives and wills hand in hand? Can I have one without the other? Do I need to have them both? Do I have to have them both at the same time?
I would say that with the pandemic, even if you're putting off your will, get your medical directive. And I know this sounds weird coming from a lawyer who earns her living doing legal documents, but Valley Health does have copies of the 5 wishes, which is a medical directive. You can fill it out on your own, get 2 independent witnesses. It does not need to be notarized if you're in Virginia. If you're in West Virginia and listening, yes, you do have to have it notarized as well. But you can do this on your own.
And I think we talked about that during one of our previous conversations, that's the other piece of this. Don't think that if you can't afford an attorney, you're out of luck and that there's nothing you can do, because there are other options that our local, like you said, Valley Health offers.
Yeah, for medical directives, most certainly. I'm not one to tell people to go to one of the online programs to get documents done, because I have seen them and I don't think they're the best you can get. But if you truly can't afford something from a lawyer, then my viewpoint is something is better than nothing, and get it done. But the medical directive, certainly you can do on your own if you use the 5 wishes. And it's a fairly, it's a very interesting document. It goes into a lot of detail, and you can get all of your medical details written into that, and then said just witnessed in Virginia, witnessed and notarized in West Virginia.
And I'm pretty sure when we did that radio show talking about that, there's a link. So I will find that link and put it in the podcast notes so that if anybody's listening, they'll be able to access it pretty quickly. I know that
Well,
you
the link-
mentioned a minute ago that you're looking at 4 to 6 weeks out for appointments. But if somebody wants to reach out to you and make an appointment either to set up any of this stuff or to just have a consultation and ask you some questions, what is the best first place for them to go to get more information from you?
My webpage is SuzanHerskowitz.com, SuzanHerskowitz.com. And you can, all the different pages that page for pricing, page for all the different things that we handle, bio and so forth. And then the phone number is easy to find on there, 540-450-3223. And for appointment, you press extension 1 and you can get set up for an appointment.
Well, thank you for taking some time out of your afternoon to chat with me for a little bit. It's always good to see your smiling face, and I'm glad we got to have a professional conversation today.
Yeah, it's odd to have it on Zoom and not over coffee.
Right? Me going to Starbucks first and meeting you at the office so we can chat in your conference room.
Right, exactly.
Soon. We'll keep our fingers crossed. Absolutely very soon. We are going to wrap up our conversation today with local attorney Suzan Herskowitz. Again, I will put her link to her website at SuzanHerskowitz.com on the show notes page. I will find information about the 5 wishes and include that in the show notes page as well. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll have a brand new episode of The Valley Today ready to go for you just a few minutes after noon. Meet me here then.